Welcome back to the table. Before we jump into today's conversation, I just want to say thank you for the patience over the last couple of weeks. I've been fighting through being sick and adjusting to my kids' summer schedule, but we're getting back on track, and I'm glad to be back at the table. This episode is supported by MK Army Heal Energy, a founding partner of the Roundtable for Men, built for long days and real work. Fuel the fearless. A lot of men aren't angry because they're hateful. They're angry because they're exhausted. Exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and eventually that exhaustion starts sounding like anger. Now, last week we talked about fatherhood, about being present, about how fast time moves. So, this week we're going to talk about something a little bit deeper, something a lot of men experience but don't always understand: anger, and how sometimes that anger isn't really anger at all. Sometimes it's just exhaustion, it's burnout, overstimulation, pressure, and emotional overload. So, that's what we're talking about today: anger and what it really looks like and where it comes from. So come on in, get comfortable, and pull up a chair. Something I've noticed about a lot of men is that we live in survival mode. We spend our entire lives filled with constant responsibility. We get into a position where we are providing for our families, and unfortunately for a lot of us, providing looks like working 80 to 100 hours a week, which means a lot of us miss out on our kids. But we justify it because we know that we are taking care of our family. And then when we're actually home, we're spending time being a parent, being with our kids, trying to be good husbands, trying to be good fathers, trying to be good providers. And somewhere along the way, we forget about ourselves. We become so focused on what everybody else needs that we stop paying attention to what we need. We stop paying attention to our mental health. We stop paying attention to our stress. We stop paying attention to our physical stress because there's always something else that needs our attention. There's always another bill, always another responsibility, another problem that needs to be solved, another person depending on us. And after a while, you begin to feel like your entire life revolves around taking care of everybody else. You wake up thinking about responsibility. You go to sleep thinking about responsibility. And even when you finally get a chance to sit down and relax, your brain never really shuts off. You're thinking about work. You're thinking about money. You're thinking about your children. You're thinking about your future. You're thinking about everything that could potentially go wrong. And eventually, you stop living. You just start surviving. You wake up, you go through your routine, you handle whatever problem that is in front of you. Then you do it all again tomorrow. And the scary part is, a lot of us don't even realize it's happening because survival mode becomes so normal to us. We become so used to carrying the pressure that we don't even notice how heavy it has become. Until one day we hit a wall. And that's where usually where the problem gets start. Because when you've been running on empty for so long, everything starts affecting you differently. When I say everything starts affecting you differently, I mean things that normally wouldn't bother you suddenly do. You become more irritable, more impatient, more reactive. Exhaustion changes how you respond to the people around you. And honestly, I've been guilty of that this week. I've had disagreements with my wife. I've gotten frustrated with my kids. And if I'm being honest, some of those moments probably weren't even about what happened at all. They were about how exhausted I was and how sick I've been. The little things that normally wouldn't have bothered me suddenly felt bigger than they actually were. A disagreement becomes an argument. A mess becomes a major frustration. A child not listening feels like disrespect. And before you realize it, you're reacting to the pressure that you're carrying, not the situation that's in front of you. And when you're running on empty, the people you love most are often the first you feel it first. That exhaustion eventually depletes your fuse, making it shorter and shorter. While that fuse gets depleted, your irritability goes through the roof. And it's the little things that set you off. Because when you realize, excuse me, when you realize that you went off because of something silly, you start to feel guilty for snapping, and exhaustion just changes how you respond. Something else that happens when we are exhausted is we start bottling everything up. A lot of men never really learn how to carry how to deal with what they're carrying. We learn to ignore it. We learn to push through it. We learn how to keep moving, but we never learn how to process it. A lot of us were raised hearing things like, man up, get over it, stop crying, be strong. And over time, we start believing that showing emotion is weakness. So instead of talking about what is bothering us, we keep it to ourselves. We keep our stress to ourselves. We keep our fears to ourselves. We keep our worries to ourselves. We keep our struggles to ourselves because we think that that is what we're supposed to do. We convince ourselves that we are handling everything when in reality, we're just carrying. And eventually, that weight starts to add up. You start carrying stress from work, the stress from finances, the stress from your marriage, the stress from your children, and even the stress from life. And after a while, you don't even know what you're carrying anymore. You just know you're tired. You just know you're frustrated. You just know that something feels off. And the problem with that is, those emotions don't just disappear because we ignore them. They stay there. And eventually, they're going to come out one way or another. A lot of men don't know how to say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm struggling, I'm stressed, I'm exhausted. So instead, it comes out as frustration. It comes out as irritability. It comes out as distance. And a lot of the time, it comes out as anger. Because anger is one of the only emotions that a lot of men feel comfortable expressing. And eventually, that anger starts affecting the people around us. The people who usually feel that exhaustion first are the people that we love the most. Our wives, our children, our families. And honestly, that is one of the hardest things to admit because we're not trying to hurt them. We love them. We would do anything for them. But when your tank is running on empty, your patience starts disappearing. Your understanding starts disappearing. Your ability to handle things calmly starts disappearing. Things that normally wouldn't bother you suddenly become major frustrations. A disagreement about something simple as shoes need to be replaced or need to be thrown out becomes an argument. A child not listening because you told them to go do one thing and you have to repeat yourself over and over and over again makes you start to feel like they're disrespecting you. Little simple mistakes become bigger issues than what they actually should be. And before you realize it, you're reacting emotionally instead of responding calmly. And sometimes it's not about what happened. It's just the final straw on the camel's back that pushed you over the edge. Because you've been carrying stress for days, weeks, or even months, or sometimes even years. And eventually, the people closest to us end up seeing the version of us that is exhausted. And that creates another problem because when you are at that point of exhaustion, you lash out. And at the end of the day, after you're done with everything, you start feeling guilty. You start wishing that you handled it differently because you know the people that you love deserve better than that. Eventually, exhaustion starts turning into resentment. And resentment is dangerous because it grows quietly, one frustration at a time, one disappointment at a time, one argument at a time. You start feeling like nobody understands what you're carrying. You start feeling like nobody notices how tired you are. You start feeling like nobody appreciates you or everything that you're trying to do. You start feeling like nobody sees you. Nobody really sees what you're dealing with or what you're trying to accomplish in life. And eventually, those feelings, when those feelings stick around long enough, you start keeping score. You start comparing what you're doing to what everybody else is doing. And eventually, you begin looking at life through the lens of frustration. instead of gratitude. You become frustrated with your spouse. You become frustrated with your children. You get frustrated with your friends. And you even become frustrated with your family. And before you realize it, you're not just exhausted anymore. You're resentful. And the problem with that is resentment doesn't fix anything. It only creates distance. Now let me be clear. Exhaustion is an explanation. It is not an excuse. Being exhausted explains why you reacted. It doesn't justify the damage. It doesn't justify hurting people. It doesn't justify saying things you shouldn't have said. At some point, we still have to take responsibility for our actions because the people around us shouldn't have to pay the price. And if you have young children, they're watching the way you react. For problems we refuse to address, your family shouldn't have to pay the price for it. You can't fix a problem that you refuse to acknowledge. And a lot of us spend years pretending we're fine when we're anything but it. So what do we do about it? The first thing that we need to do is recognize it. Recognize that you're exhausted. Recognize that your fuse is shorter. Recognize that your patience is gone. Recognize that you're not functioning at your best. But once you realize that you're able to acknowledge it, it's time to reach out for help. Because maybe somebody can help you get through it. And you have to learn how to recover for yourself. Maybe it's through sleep. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's just spending time with people who recharge you. And like I said, maybe it's finally time for asking for help. But whatever it is, you have to stop pretending that you can carry everything forever. Because nobody can. You're human. You have limits. You have needs. And ignoring those needs doesn't make you stronger. Eventually, it makes you better. At the end of the day, a lot of men aren't angry. They're exhausted. They're carrying pressure. They're carrying stress. They're carrying responsibility. And they're doing it quietly every single day. The problem is when we ignore that exhaustion, it eventually starts affecting the people that are around us. Our wives, our children, our friends, our families, and even ourselves. Because we don't act like ourselves when we're at that point. So we have to learn how to recognize it. We have to learn how to address it. And we have to learn how to recover. Because being strong doesn't mean carrying everything alone. Sometimes being strong means admitting that you're tired. So if this episode resonates with you, take something from it. Pay attention to what you're carrying. Pay attention to how you're responding. And ask yourself, are you really angry? Or are you just tired? Are you just exhausted? Thanks for sitting down with me today. I'll see you next time at the Roundtable for Men.